on this episode of Damsels in the DMs.
And I don't put all my eggs in my acting basket. And I think that that is like my number one. It doesn't affect me in my life that much.
This message is intended as a reminder that we are not licensed professionals, not psychiatrists or psychologists. If you have a serious problem, please seek professional help. The National Suicide Hotline is 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255.
There's some damsels in the DM.
Yes, queen.
Tell us what's the vibe. There's some damsels in the DM. Please tell us what's the vibe. DMs, yeah we see them, yeah we read them. DMs, we don't need them, we just leave them.
Please.
Yeah.
It's going down in the DMs. Bye.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Damsels in the DMs. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Ash. And
And
I'm back
Ash-
from a 3-week vacation, dude.
Yeah, please tell us everything.
Max is sitting next to me like this idiot. I literally cried about not having my own space, like when we got back. And he's like, "Oh yeah, 3-week vacation? How fun."
Didn't you do have your own space though?
No, we were traveling for 3 weeks with 3 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
And I mean like my own spaces, and you know how I am, like my own home and my own stuff and that kind of stuff. So it was a little bit hard for me, but we're back in Paris and I'm like getting used to having my own space again. So that's good.
How were the vacations?
It was so good. It was nice. The first week was just us. We went to his like family's place in the west, and then the next two were in Biarritz and Cap Ferret, which is also down southwest. And it was really fun. It was with all his friends. It was full of French. I feel like I've just been listening to French nonstop. I'm excited to speak English.
Is your French better?
To be honest, like I didn't speak much when I was there. Like I didn't speak in any French when I was there. I was just speaking English, but I heard a lot of French around me and everyone was speaking French. So I think my listening skills are better, but my speaking skills for some reason, I don't have the confidence to speak right now and I don't know why.
It takes a little bit. I remember that with Spanish, that like you kind of have to just jump into it. And I remember when I went back to my friend's wedding in Sevilla, like I met with my tutor a lot before I went to the wedding because I just wanted to feel like, okay, I'm just going to go for it once I get there because I feel bad like being the only person that people have to speak English to.
Yeah, that's how I felt too. I was like, and people would be like, guys, remember, like, speak English. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't want to make you guys speak English just for me. Like, I'm the only person that doesn't speak French. But they would keep, like, remembering here and there. And they'd be like, guys, remember, speak English. And I'm like, I'm just going to go for like an hour or two so you can speak French.
Well, we've missed you on the podcast. It's nice to have you back.
I know, it's been so long. Are you still in the Tahoe area or where are you?
I'm at Murphy's at Brian's cabin. His parents are selling the house, so it's the last like month to be here. And it was really nice because my family came and visited for the weekend, so they got to experience Murphy's.
Oh, that's so nice. So you had like your parents and his parents all together?
His parents weren't here because they were here the last couple weekends, so it was just my family here.
Okay. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. It's so funny with both you and my sister in France now because like my sister has also been on a month-long vacation and my family is all like she's just always on vacation. Like what is she doing? Like she's just been on vacation for a month. And I know that like Europeans don't believe on working on vacation. So I'm like this must be so funny for your Maxime who's like listening to you do a podcast and he's like but it's vacation because like they so fully believe in vacation.
Are you working? No, actually he's like working on his like restaurant concept and stuff, so he has been busy working. Right, like we were not doing anything while we were on vacation. I was just trying to catch up with my nutrition school, which I'm so behind that I don't even want to talk about. But so 3 weeks of us like barely doing any work, and now he went as soon as we got back, we're like we need to focus and like completely just be focused on our careers. And it's been hard for me to even like remember to post stories. Like when you're on vacation mode and everybody else is on vacation mode around you, like nobody's working, it's so hard to do anything, especially like it kind of felt like a go, go, go type of vacation.
And I'm glad that
Yeah.
Maxime is the most American Frenchman then.
He is. He really is.
Beautiful
I
to
don't even know
hear.
if he's listening to us. He's just busy. So I'm so excited to talk to Sakai. I found her through, I think it was Backstage or IMDb's ones to watch list that they do for 2023. She went to Juilliard, so she's a Juilliard girly. And, there's a part of me that wishes I also went to, like everyone wishes they went to Juilliard.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to talk to her. She was also in Paper Girls, which is on Amazon Prime, and I am excited to talk to her about that too. And she's here. Oh my God. So
Look,
this is how it
speak
works.
of the devil.
Oh my God.
Hi, ladies.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Nice
Thank
to
you for
meet
being with us
you.
bright and early.
I'm so happy to be here. It's also 11 for me, so I'm
Okay,
not.
good.
I'm not like you guys are really. You're in it right now. I'm not.
No, just me.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
I live in Paris, so it's 5 p.m. for me.
Okay, me. That's what I figured. I was like, we're not. We're all trying to figure this out. We're all trying to figure
Yes.
this out.
Yeah.
Also, well, Sakai, thank you so much for joining us. Please, can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you're located, and how you began your journey into acting?
Totally, yeah. So I'm born and raised in Portland, Oregon, and I started acting when I was 8 years old because I feel like it was great. Yeah, I started acting when I was 8 years old because it was a free program. So my parents like put me in it. And my mom works in the arts, and there was like a theater brigade. The Portland Theater Brigade was at the IFCC, which was a cultural center in my neighborhood that my mom worked at and did programming at. And so I went, and I think my brother and I both went, and he dropped out after like a month or two. And I was like, I love this. And during that time, I remember the woman who ran it kind of had a meeting with me and my parents, and were like, maybe she should like really do this. Like, she really loves this, and we think there's something there. And so I did my first audition when I was 8. And I've always looked and read much older than I was. And they like told me in the audition that I like wasn't like that. They were like, you're amazing, but like you just seemed way too old. And I was like 8 and the role was for 7. And I think they thought I was like 14. Plus it was like my first audition, and like I'd been practicing like so hard for it. Like it was just, and I just started weeping. Like I just broke down in the audition room. I was like, done. I can't do this. They had to take me out of the back way. I don't know why I'm telling this story. They had to take me out of the back way because I was like, I was 8 years old. Like, I think you maybe just don't say that. And so they like took me out. My parents were like, yeah, no, we're not pursuing this. We're not doing this. And I stopped, and then I got into it in middle school, and I really wanted to be a lawyer for a long time, and I was doing mock trial. And I remember talking to one of the lawyers, and they were like, yeah, you don't really want to go to trial. Like, that's really kind of, A, you have to be like a trial lawyer, and B, that's kind of like last case scenario. Like, people don't want to go. They were like, so all the prep that we do leading up to the competition, that's like what you have to love. And I was like, well, I don't love that. Like, I love the actual mock trial. Like, I loved being on my feet. I loved the improv. I loved knowing what my opening, my closing was. I loved doing like, I loved that aspect of it. And I realized like I really loved the performance. And so I slowly found my way back to acting, and I did like the August Wilson monologue competition, and I went to nationals with it, and stuff just kept going. And then when I left school, when I graduated at 18 from high school, I went to Juilliard, and it just kind of has been my path since.
That's amazing. And now you're still in New York, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what life at Juilliard was like? I feel like Ash and I were saying before this, like for all actors, everyone just has this like, oh my God, image of Juilliard. Like it's such a mecca in the acting world. So it would be so cool
Totally.
to hear about like what it was really like.
Yeah. I think like, which is like a path I think we'll talk about too, like after leaving Juilliard, but I think like being naive can be like actually like a really positive thing to have, like to not know exactly how prestigious something is. And like I said, I was from Portland, Oregon. I have no family in the business, no one even like close to having done, like I just didn't know a lot of stuff. So I was like applying to things and auditioning for places, knowing it would be like a big deal to go there. But I think I also was like, I just didn't really fully, I did not know the level of like prestige that it held in the acting world or just in the like the world's period. So I was just kind of like auditioning for schools, and I was like going to be in New York auditioning for other schools when the Juilliard audition was happening. So I was like, I'm going to do it. And the process is a really long process, the audition process. Like you come at 9 a.m., like everybody, it's like cattle, like everybody shows up at 9 a.m. And then you wait and you get a time slot and then you like audition and then you go out of the room and wait. And then they'll bring you back in if they want to see more. And then you'll go and you'll wait. And then they're going to get rid of almost everybody. And then people stay and you do this like big group audition. And then you wait and then you go in a room and audition again in front of like half the staff. And then you wait to see if you get an interview. So it starts with like 200 people in the day. And by the end, there's like 15 people. And then if you get to the next level, you come back for a full weekend and you audition and you like take classes and you're like with all these people. And you do that for a full weekend. And then out of those top 50, they choose their class. So, and 8 of you are undergrad or 9 of you are undergrad and 9 of you are grad students. So I would also say like you're auditioning, and a lot of people who are undergrad, maybe they just didn't go to college and they've been acting in the world. So when you're 18, you know, like, and your mom's like, what's happening next? And you're with like, you know, like a lot of my classmates were like in their 30s, you know, you're like sitting with these like adults, you know, so it's a whole other like weird that they really made a choice to do this. And you're kind of like, I'm auditioning to go to acting school, you know, like you're kind of not even, but I think that like, I don't even know what I'm doing. So I'm just here and I'm just going to do it is like really, really helpful. My actual experience in the building and going to Juilliard was really complicated. I started Juilliard in 2016. I graduated in 2020. So America as a whole was going through a really intense reckoning, you know, at that time. And being at an institution that holds itself with such prestige and asking the question of like, what does prestige really mean, right? Like, who gets to say it's prestigious? Who gets to be in those rooms? Who gets to control those rooms? It was hard. It was hard for all of us. It was hard for the students. It was hard for the teachers, and it was hard for the administration. On top of that, it's just rigorous, you know, like you are there 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. every single day, Monday through Saturday. You know, you're taking classes, you've got 10 minutes in between class, you've got an hour for lunch, you've got an hour for dinner, you're in rehearsal till 10 p.m. And like I said, I was 18, my classmates were in their 30s. I'm trying to figure out how to like be away from home for the first time. And, you know, they're married and are living their lives. So you kind of have those pressures. What it was to be a person of color in those rooms at that time was really hard and at times really difficult. But I wouldn't give it away for the world. I think that it trained me in a way that like my acting practice is changed because of it, but like my life practice is also changed because of it. Like I think I will always be shaped by those really early 4 years of my life, learning to think and to question and to be curious and to be interested and to be detail oriented and, you know, to be prepared and to be on time and all of those things that Juilliard really hammered in, I'm really thankful for. And I can also like hold space that it was I had a complicated relationship to the institution as a whole.
What was life like for you outside of Juilliard? Like when you graduated 4 years later, I know 2020 hit, so weird experience also on top of that when the world kind of just shut down. But what was your experience like outside when you graduated Juilliard, having that name, you know, on your diploma? What do you feel like it opened up doors for you that wouldn't usually be opened to people who maybe didn't get the chance to go?
Yeah. I like to say like we work in an industry of last names. So you kind of are born with one or you go to school and you get one. So I like joke, I walk into a room and it's like, I imagine like if my last name was Scorsese, there'd be like I would walk into a room with a, you know, it's like that. It's, you know, Sekai Benny Juilliard, you know, like that kind of becomes a part of. So yes, like my road to getting representation was you know, very specific. My road into auditioning and what I was able to audition for was very specific. And then also the opportunities, like the level that the opportunities I've been able to have, both as an actor and as an artist in whole, like it holds a lot of weight in the art world, kind of however you choose to wield it. But that's not everyone who comes out either, you know, and I don't want to like make it seem like you go there and like you got the golden ticket, you know. Some people come out and don't get representation. Some people come out and don't work, and it's that's also, you know, they're also on like a totally different journey. So I think everybody kind of has their own journey, but I do know, because of who I am, because of how I am as an artist, having that last name has been hugely beneficial and has allowed me so much opportunity that I don't know that it would have looked like this had I not.
Yeah. It's so true what you're talking about because I'm in Columbia's MFA film program and I also did that, like, I don't want to say later in life, but you know, I had a lot of space between my undergraduate before I did my MFA. And the kids who came like with a little bit of life behind them, like they very much felt like, you know, this is a short time period, I have to get everything out of this that I can, like kind of in a way that it's like almost you're tense going through the program. And I do feel like the kids who came to do it right out of undergrad had this like sort of bright-eyed naivete, like not understanding what the industry is yet, where like the people who are older had this like, I don't know, like chip on their shoulder, like just knowing what the industry is going to be and how hard it's going to be when you get out of school, you know? And
Yeah.
I do think that there's really something to that, like bright-eyed innocence when you take on a program like that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's, I mean, and like, you're not as precious about your time because it's been controlled for your whole life. Like, if you've never left school, you don't really have an understanding of like, of choice almost, you know, in another way, that it's like doing those programs that are very rigorous. You're almost like, you've kind of been told what to do your whole life. So you can fall in line in a way that at times is helpful, you know? I don't know. I've showed up on sets and just been like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I think it's like helpful in a way because I'm not in my head about things in a way, or like, I don't know. I think that's just a way that, like, my mom is always like, where are you staying? What are you doing? What's this? Who's that? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm just going to show up and figure it out, you know? And I think like that is what works best for me. Like, I just like to take the temperature while I'm there, but I don't know what I would have been like. I don't know if I could go get my MFA from Juilliard now. I mean, I don't know who I would have been had that not been my undergrad experience. So I think that's hard to say, but like, that would be hard for me to like put that. Yeah, I think I watched in some of my classmates also because like we're in a very ageist industry as well. So for a classmate who was going to come out, who was, you know, a woman who was going to be 37 versus me who's going to come out at 22, the anxiety around, is it going to be feasible? Am I going to be, you know, was different, you know?
Yeah.
So I also can't like, it's hard when this is so a part of the marketplace, right? Like
Yeah.
we sell ourselves and our image in a way that it's difficult when, especially for women, when you add the age element in.
100%. I want to talk about rejection for a second because like you talked about feeling this very intense rejection at a young age, but then obviously you got over that after mock trial, you went on to Juilliard, and you know, you went through this very intense audition process where I'm sure a lot of people left, you know, traumatized over the rejection because for a lot of people going to college is their first audition experience. I'm curious how you got over that, like I guess in a way for the love of the game, and also how you continue to deal with that on a daily basis because it is so ingrained in this career.
I would say in some ways I just have like an unwavering confidence about myself. And recently, because like, so okay, so there's like the like, you're just auditioning and like you don't get stuff, and I think that that's like one thing. When you get really close to something, that's when it's like, ooh, that hurt. You know what I mean? Like when you're, you know, if you've done all the callbacks and it's like you and one other person and then you don't get it, or like you really thought, or like, you know, that kind of stuff stings more. And I was dealing with it in June before the shutdown, and that instance happened. And the first thought that came to my mind was, I'm really happy that that person got their blessing, because whenever I've received or I've gotten a role or stuff has moved forward for me, it's definitely been my blessing. Like, it's definitely like that room was really made for me to be in that room. Like, I was supposed to go to Juilliard with that like group, and like I wanted to go to a different school. Like, didn't get into the school that I like really wanted to go to, which is like, you know, but because it wasn't my blessing. Like, that was, I wasn't supposed to be there. I was supposed to be here. I was supposed to be in this TV show. I was supposed to be in this movie. I was supposed to be in this residency, whatever. It was my blessing. So if I believe that about myself, when someone else gets something, the first thing I say is, thank God they got their blessing because it was time for them. You know, but when you remove it in that way, it's not even like, oh, you know, you kind of like, you just kind of remove yourself from it. Because also when you get stuff, like I love being on sets with my producers or my director or like whatever. And it's like, you're kind of like, so like, why was it me? You know what I mean? Like when you get it, you're like, so like what I do. And like, they never have an answer, you know, like, it's like, I don't know. They're just kind of like, because it was you, or like we saw you and we just knew. So it's like, it almost is like you have to remove the, like, it's not personal, you know? And I know that that's hard, but like, it's just like, it's really not personal, you know, like personal reject is hard to get over in life, you know, and like romantically and friendship wise. And, you know, those things still, they really hurt me. But when it comes to like my career, you know, you also, it's like at a certain point, you've gotten rejected. I've probably gotten rejected. I don't know. I've probably done like 200 auditions. I don't know. Like, I've auditioned so much, and like I don't hear back. You don't even hear anything. Like, you don't even get rejected. Like, you get ghosted. Like, you just get ghosted, and that's just kind of the vibe. I don't know. I'm like, it's like dating now and auditioning very similar. Like, they just don't text you back, you know, and or you don't text them back. You know what I mean? Like, it just you know, I don't know. I think I just like released it, and I don't put all my eggs in my acting basket. And I think that is like my number one. It doesn't affect me in my life that much if I don't get it. It's going to affect me more if I get it. It's going to be like a little more annoying schedule wise and this, and now I got to figure out that, and I got to move now for 3 months or whatever. Like, that's more work actually. So, you know.
What is your life outside of acting?
So I'm going to answer this question and like another question that you asked, but in 2020 is when I graduated. We went on spring break. We did not come back. And that was a really weird time to have invested a really particular 4 years of my life into an industry that was silent, as we all experienced. And we're in a similar phase again. But I was living upstate, and I was in upstate New York, and I was cooking a lot, and I was like starting to really fall in love with food, and it kind of just kept developing into this visual arts practice. So I'm a sculptor, and my medium is food, and that engages in performance as well. And so the first time I did it, I was working with a friend of mine who I went to school with, a jazz musician named Emmanuel Wilkins. He'd called me and asked me for some, you know, like some writing, some lyrics. He was writing this jazz opera for 2021. And we kind of kept talking about it, and I was making all these food videos, but I knew I didn't want to like do like the food content thing. And I knew I didn't want to do I didn't want to work in a restaurant. Like, it was too much like Juilliard. It was too like rigorous and yelling and mean. I just was like, I'm not into that either. So kind of started being this like piece of performance work, and then also like it just kept developing. So in 2021, I did this piece called Blues Blood Black Future with this musician, and I built this altar out of like food and fabric and talismans and objects, and then I cooked on stage for 2 hours while this like project was happening. So it just kind of kept developing from there, and then I would make installations, and sometimes they would sit, or I make like pop-up installations, so they'll happen, and like you come and you experience it, but you're also eating it. So it's always an offering, and so it's working with food, but there's this kind of aspect of like understanding the food as like a medium to sculpt with and to tell story with. And then that's developed. I did a short film called Winter Citrus, and we premiered that at Ars Nova. And the stage was covered in sculptures out of oranges. And I was on stage while it happened. And so I did that. And that was 2 days. And it was like 10 hours long. So like durational kind of performance. And so it kept developing. And now I'm in upstate New York at the Wassaic Project, which is a visual art residency. So I'm up here with a bunch of painters and sculptors and printmakers and writers and people working on a bunch of different mediums and working on food sculptures and getting ready for another short film. So that takes up so much of my practice and my time that when like the acting comes, it's very, it's fun to watch how they also like inform each other, because how I learned to be curious at Juilliard was like when I started working in a new medium, it was like I already knew how to ask those questions. I already knew what the questions needed to be. I just needed to like figure out how to develop the practice. And so that's been a lot of the last 3 years of my life, as well as the acting.
So when Juilliard went on spring break and didn't come back, you were also in upstate New York?
I was, because bless her heart, my like speech teacher was like, well, I've got this big house and my brother has a big house, like we should, if any students like want to come up. And so my best friend and I were like, I called my best friend. I was like, I'm scared. I don't know anybody. What are we going to do? And he was like, let's go up. So I went and I was like with him and some like 2 other students. And I was there for like, I don't know, 2 months. And it was really sweet. And it was like really lovely. And we were just like cooking and playing and hanging out. And it was a really hard time for a lot of people. And I don't want to minimize that. But there was something about the pause that I'm feeling because of the strike as well right now that I like very much enjoy.
Yeah, I kind of like the pause too. I remember like when the strike was first announced, I was like, oh God, like what am I going to do with my life without auditions? Like who am I without auditions? But there is some like beauty in figuring out like what does life look like when it's not, the identity we can grasp to.
Oh my God. I look, I'm like not an actor who's going to be like, I love auditioning. Like I love like I hate it. I hate it so much. Because I'm nervous and I'm thinking so hard about it and you're putting so much effort in and you're going to get ghosted and like, and maybe you're not right for it, but your team wants you to do it for a certain reason or you just want to do it for like, or like, that you want to look good and does my hair look good and does my makeup look good and do I have my, you spend an hour getting your lights set up every time and then you got to bug a friend and are they auditioning as much and you get good auditions with them and you know what I mean? Like, I love it. Like, I'm like so happy. Are you kidding me? I'm like, don't, please, like, tell my team, like, offer only. No offers, but offer only, like, I don't even want to do it anymore. So, I don't know. I'm enjoying the rest. It was really, like, lucky. I, like, applied for this residency this time last year. So, it was really kind of lucky that it just hit. And I did another residency at Berkeley Rep for their ground floor residency. So this summer, I didn't want to be in the city for August. I was like super clear about that last summer. But kind of these things that like popped up, which when you are an auditioning actor, it can be really hard to convince your team that you're going to take time off from auditioning or that you're going to like block out a schedule for something that they might not understand. And sometimes they're amazing about it. Sometimes it's, you have to kind of push your, finagle a little bit more, especially if you have practices in multiple places. So I think that like, it was a really lucky moment for me that like, I didn't have anything, but all this other stuff I had like already planned and like, because you don't know, it could have been August. We could have not been on strike. It could have been August and I could have been like, not getting auditions. Like that's the other thing about being an actor. You always try to make yourself available. And sometimes I'm like, for what? No, I'm going to plan to do something else. And if we get there, we get there. But I don't need to like plan. Like I don't need to plan to be free if there's no reason for me to be free yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I've missed out on so many like family holidays and like family stuff just because I was like, no, I have to go back early because it's pilot season, and then I'm there in LA and there's like nothing. It's crickets.
No, and you're not gonna like. I don't know. I would say I'm like very ambitious in my career, and I want to like work hard and enjoy that. And I also like want to spend as much time as I can with my family, and I want to see my friends, and I don't also want to isolate myself in my work. Like I've never been that person. I don't want to isolate myself for the work. And again, I feel like things will come when they're supposed to come. And that's a really new place I'm in my life. I would say out of like the past like few months where something happened and I was supposed to have this meeting, and I got on the plane, I was ready to go, and the flight like didn't take off. Like literally like flight got canceled, and the meeting was like for that night, and it was like on the West Coast and I was on the East Coast. And there was like no reschedule. Like it just was like, and for the first time in my life I just got off and I was like, there's something better. Like there's some like I just like felt like there's something better for me. Like this meeting is gonna happen. And then, you know, a month later, it's like the meeting is gonna happen next month, but like everything leading up to it is like couldn't have been better. Like it was like not supposed to happen that night. And so I feel that way. I'm like, well, if there's an audition that I really can't do because I'm like hanging out with my dad who's 70 and I'm like not gonna see him again probably for 6 months, like it's okay, you know, like I want to be present. And I will say my team is also really like they're like, if you are like spending time with your family, like spend time with your family. And I feel that for them vice versa. So you can't hit them up when they're hanging out with their family, you know what I mean? Like you gotta like, but I think that that's the career like path I'll always want to have, is that I'm like enjoying and living my life, and I'm also like engaging in the world and in the practice.
I
love
want to
that.
talk about an audition process that did go well for you.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I think it's important to celebrate our wins as well. So I want to hear about the whole audition process for Paper Girls, your experience booking the role, and, you know, how that's changed up your career trajectory for you.
Totally. So I got rejected. I like auditioned for a different role in the show originally. I auditioned for like a much smaller like guest star, like one episode role. And it was my first callback. I hadn't been getting like any callbacks. It wasn't like a full year out of Juilliard. By the time I filmed it, it was a full year out, but like the audition process started in March and I didn't end up on set till July. But I remember I like got the audition and I was doing it with my friend, and the show is a little like silly. Like there's a little silly aspect of it, and I am not a comedian. Like it's not my bag, and I think comedians are like some of the most brilliant people and like comedic actors. And I went to school with a few who are like some of the, I mean, it's just like it's its own talent, and like it's just amazing. So I kind of was like being a little silly because I was like, this is a little like, I'm reading the script, I'm like, the kids are traveling, like I'm like, this is kind of silly, you know. And I remember like we were having a really joyful time with it. So again, with my like, oh, I hate auditioning, but it's like we kind of just having fun with it. And I think we wanted to like watch a movie after, so we were like, let's like get this done, like, you know. And I got a call back, and I like did my callback, and I got rejected. You know, I got the like, hey, she's great, she's not right for this, but we think there's a role down the line that we are going to want her to like audition for. And I think kind of your first assumption is like it's going to be a small, like I was like, oh, there's already a guest star, like maybe like a one scene role. But at that point, it was rounding a year since I'd left school. My other practice was like my food work, I was directing people, I was styling stuff. Like I was kind of just like really having also a good time in the COVID of like, you could do whatever you want, and people like were flying with it. Like, you know, like it was a lot of, for me at least in my artistic community, like everyone was just making shit because they could. So people were like, we were just like, I was like, oh yeah, I'll be a creative director. Like, oh yeah, like I'll make a food installation. Oh, you know, I'll, you know, so kind of chilling. But I got the second audition and I was like, oh, this is like, I actually really like this writing. And I really
How
like
long
this
after
feeling.
was it?
So I want to say, I'm like gonna guess, but I think the first audition process happened in April, and then it wasn't until May at the end of May. So it was like, it'd been like 2 months. Like there was enough time where it wasn't on like top of the brain. And when I got it, I wasn't precious about it. I wasn't holding on to it. So about May, I got the second audition. And that one, yeah, I remember thinking like, oh, this writing's really good. She was, she's kind of the audition part that like did end up in the TV shows when she's, talking to her younger self, and she's talking about what her experience was going to MIT and going to this prestigious school, but being a Black woman there. So I felt like this immediate connection to that. And there was moments I thought it was like fun. And I thought the idea of like where I was in my own life and my own like kind of practice about trying to deal with myself as a younger child and do that healing work, I thought it was a really cool opportunity for that to show up in the acting. Like I kind of fell in love with it. Did that audition. I cannot remember if I had 1 or 2 callbacks, but I just remember like going in, everybody was on the like screen. And at that point, we were like Zoom professionals. So I was like, let's do this. And then when I got the call, I was like working at an antique shop in Chinatown, and they emailed me and were like, hey, Sakai, we need to have a call with everybody. And now I know if you have a call with everybody, it means something good. But at that point, I was like, well, it's been a year and they're going to drop me. I was like, they're going to drop me. So I was like, I can't have the call right now because I'm at work. And I was like, I can't get dropped at work. Like, that's embarrassing. And I was thinking about everybody I know, and I'm like pumping myself up. I'm like, no, like we'll get you another agent. Like I literally was like already problem solving. I was like, I'm gonna call this person. Okay, I've got this like I literally was like, who do I know? Whose mom? Who? Like I don't know. And I like got home. It was hot it was so hot. I got home. I like lit the candles on my altar. I like got on my bed and I was just like, don't cry. Like leave with pride. And they got on the phone and they were like, like you booked the role. And I was like, what role? I had 1 callback. Like, we know the role you booked, baby. Like, I was like, so like, and then the first thing I said to them, because I just gotten the job, like it was like my week 2 at this antique shop. I just gotten the job. And I said to them, I just got a day job. And they just were like, I think they just thought I was really like odd. I think they always thought I was a little weird, but I think at that point they were just like, what the fuck? Like she's sending us videos of her cooking on stage with musicians, and now she's like worried about her day job. Like at that point they like did not know, like they were so confused by it. But it was great. I like called my mom and she was like crying, like it was just like the big wins when you kind of lose a lot feel really, really like amazing. It felt amazing. Like I remember my friends were going out to dinner that night, and like 2 of my best friends were like going out to dinner, and like a few other people, like acquaintances and stuff. And I didn't want to go because I thought I was going to get dropped that night, so I didn't want to go and like cry in front of. And they're all actors, and they're all successful actors too. So I was like, I really didn't want to do that. And then I was like, I remember texting my friend, I was like, I'm coming. Like I was just like, wow. Like I bet, and I love a celebration. I love a good time. So it was amazing. And then showing up on set was like really hard because it was my first job ever. My first time being on set. It was my first time being, I was like, what do you do after they call action? I remember like that was my big question. Was like, what do I do after they call? Like, are you supposed to like pause? Like, does everybody know you pause for 10 seconds or do you go? Like, I think I have a lot of fear of not looking like I belong where I am. And that was like, I didn't want to show up and like people like felt like I did not know what I was doing. And I showed up on set with kids, 14-year-olds who like were more professional than I mean, they had worked more than I had. So like, I'm obsessed with them. They're like amazing girls. But you know what, you don't want to say to the 14-year-old, like, what am I going to do? You know what I mean? Like it's like, you're kind of just out there, So I was like, it really was kind of just like you kind of just keep your cool, you keep your mouth shut and you look around, and that's what I would say, like, keep your mouth shut, like, don't talk on your first day, not in a bad way or like in a weird mute way, but like, just watch, like take the opportunity to like watch and you'll figure it out. I asked, hey, they knew it was my first job. They knew I was coming from Juilliard. So again, I got a bigger opportunity as my first. But I said to them, like, is it possible for me to like come to set a day early? Because we filmed in Chicago, so I was there like a week before I even started for hair and testing and whatever. And I said, can I just come and sit on set, so I can like learn, just like where do the actors go? What's Video Village? Like, there's a lot of language. I just finished my like second big project. And on this one, I like didn't care. I was asking all the time. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I just like, for some reason, like the first time I didn't want anybody to know I like hadn't done it. And the second time I was on set though, I was just like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. Or like, what do you mean go there? Or like, what are you talking about? Because it's a lot of like, there's a language on set that's really intimidating. So it's like, you listen, you're going to learn a lot, but then also you can just be like, I actually don't know what that means. And no one was like, had their nose up to me, but it was, super different, being like, this TV show is all 14-year-olds. And then I just did a movie with like me and two 60-year-olds. And that was like a totally different experience, like you're like the baby, like that being on set. I'm like, oh, these girls are like looking up to me in a way that like you do when you're 14 and there's a 20 something, like you get a certain status as like a young adult. Right. And then you go and I'm like 24 and everyone's like in their 60s and I've been working in this industry for years and years and years and like all this stuff. And in that room, I was almost more comfortable to like lean into the fact that I don't know, and that was like also really liberating for me, I think.
I want to talk a bit about your representation journey, because you mentioned that like you found your team, that you felt like that going to Juilliard helped you in doing that. But it seems like you have a team who really like understands you and works for you and works around your schedule. How did you go about that? And also, like, how would you advise people who are starting out and looking for representation?
So I just switched my manager. I think it's a lot easier to get in bed than it is to get out of bed. My previous manager, great guy, solid dude, like amazing. It just wasn't the right fit, but I have nothing bad to say about him. I have nothing bad to say about anybody that I've worked with. I've been really, really privileged. I've had amazing co-stars. I've had amazing directors. I've had amazing producers. Like, I'm super, super blessed in that way. Going about getting representation, I cannot tell you if you did not go to one of the schools, because that's mine. I can't even pretend to know how to go about it because that was just my experience. I also think that what was hard the first round is I did all of my meetings on Zoom. Wasn't in person because it was COVID. And I also like did not know who I was as an artist. I was coming out of school. I was being told what roles I was, getting. I was a little bit pigeonholed in my casting at Juilliard for most of my time. My last year, like, really switched up, which was amazing. But, for the first 3 years, it was like so not my pocket, not my bag. I had no idea about my food practice. I didn't really understand that I wanted to be a director. Like, I didn't know who I was. And I was in a place of panic and survival because the power dynamics are so intense. You're coming out of school, you don't know anything about the industry, and it was also a pandemic. So it was kind of a perfect storm I still was really lucky. Like, they worked so hard for me. Like, they get me out, they get me seen. But I knew it was like time to switch. And I knew that it was time for a different management team, and you kind of have to ride your momentum. So you have to know when to move. So I booked this movie, I left my manager, and I came off the movie. I knew that I would be able to I knew that coming off of that project, I would be at a better place to get new representation. If I hadn't had that, I met my new manager through my producer, which I'd also say, like, if you know producers that know, it's also like connections and people who know you and know other people sometimes are like matchmakers. It's like asking your friend to set you up. I don't think it's good to ask other actors. I think it like puts actors in a weird position because I think unless you have like a lot of status. Like, I've had people like come into my DMs and like that I like know from like once, or like I met and like we went to middle school together and like asked me to hook them up with my team, and it's like I don't really have the status for that, you know, like it is an industry about status. And so if you can find someone, maybe like an actor who you know, but who's like been working for a really long time, has a really tight relationship, like they might be able to do that. I found that like producers or like people you've worked with, like if you've worked with a director, if you've worked with a producer, if you've worked with people, they might have a better ability to like get you in a room. So that was like that's kind of like what I think. But in this last round, because I just did like a bunch of managers and like sat down, I knew way more about myself. I didn't wasn't trying to prove to them that they should sign me. I wanted to know why I wanted to hear from them what they were going to do for me, and switching it to like I'm not applying for a job, I'm hiring my staff because they are your team. They do work for you. So you have to feel like they listen to you. And I knew I like came in and was like, this is what my next year, I want my next year to look like. This is the project I'm working on. You know, is it a team? Like, if you're not just an actor, like, is it a team that wants you for more than just being an actor and really understands that, you know, like, and that's what I knew I was going in for. And also was just like sitting in the room was like, yeah, I'm a director. I want to make this film. This is what I'm working on. And so it ended up being like, I'm obsessed with my manager now. I think she's amazing. I think like both, I have two managers on my team. I think they're both so smart, so cool. They understand my work. They're interested in the other side of my work. That was so important to me. They take my call, you know, like they listen to me if I say no, I don't want to do that, and they give me their opinion. Like it just kind of worked, but I think it like might be like a dating game a little bit. Like I don't know. Like I don't know that like you're going to meet the first person you ever like work with. Like maybe they're really good at getting people like off the ground, you know, but like and then when you're like coasting, you might need some, you know, I don't know. Like I think I've had like a really particular experience, but I don't know. You just kind of know like, and you know when like, you know when your show's coming out, they're gonna like answer the phone way more, you know. But the week before it comes out, you know, it might be a little harder, you know, till you get the ring back, you know, or like you just have to know how to utilize people. You need to ride your momentum. It's really a game. It's a dance. Like you're just kind of you got to read the room, I think, a little bit. So that's not like not helpful for anybody, but that's kind of my experience.
No, I thought that was super helpful because I think a lot of actors just go to their fellow actors. I don't think that people think to go to the producers. But I think, Ash, we can move on to your favorite questions about particularly your number one favorite question to stop people for.
Well, we would like to know what are some healthy habits or routines, like a morning routine that you've set for yourself to keep yourself grounded in this insane industry. And, you know, like our minds just work in such different ways that I'm so curious about how yours works and what keeps yours grounded.
Totally. Yeah. It's something that like it like ebbs and flows seasonally for me. So I'm in this like really restful season where like I'm sleeping so much later than I'm in the country. So I'm like living a country life, you know, I'm sleeping in, I'm getting up. But when I'm in the city, especially as soon as it starts getting dark late, and in the fall, I always put myself back on the Juilliard schedule. So I wake up first thing in the morning, I do my like, you know, water, I do my celery juice, like I do all the health stuff. I try to eat something really fast and I go to the gym. I like having a place to go. I love like sitting in a sauna and like sweating it out, but I love to just like get the body going because as soon as those like endorphins are going and the brain is moving and like when I'm moving my body, it's like, I hate to say it, but it's a game changer. Like you're just like, you feel like a better person. I feel like I've accomplished something. And so because I did that, I just want to keep going. And then I think like working for yourself, because also I always say like being an actor is running a business. And, you know, I just like in like work hours. So after I go to the gym, I go straight to a coffee shop and then I work for the entire morning. And that can be creative. It can be emails. It just depends on what the day needs. Maybe I'm writing, maybe I'm, and then I go home, I'll eat a little bit, I'll work from home. if I don't do the gym in the morning, I take a Pilates class in the afternoon. I've done Pilates for the past 4 years. I really love it. I really swear by it. I think it's amazing. And then I try to make myself dinner. I like try to really, or like have dinner with somebody, but like dinner, I try to be like just as intentional about. If I had like a little, like I always imagine like if I had a family, what would I do for my kids? And I try to, or if I have a partner, like it's so easy to be like, oh my God, like, did you eat when, when he comes home from work? But like, it's harder to do that to yourself. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's easy for me to think about caretaking for others. It's harder for me to be, internalize that. So just like thinking of myself as my partner, thinking of myself as my family, like what would I do for somebody else if I wanted to make their day perfect, and like try to implement that. But I think moving the body, I think drinking the water, I think a great cup of coffee, I think, stillness, I think moments of meditation. I think they like are really little things that add up, especially for me, like seasonal. It can be easy to fall into like a seasonal depression in New York when like it's 4 o'clock and you're done, and like that stuff gets a little rough. So I find that like putting myself on like a real like regimented schedule, my days like add up in a much better way.
What a great answer. Thank you.
Okay. So, as you know, we are damsels in the DMs, so we have to ask you these DM questions.
Can't
And
wait.
we would love to know, what is the funniest, wildest, most intriguing, or inspirational DM that you have ever received?
Okay. After the request to be on this podcast, what was my craziest DM? I love the DMs that are like from people who watch the show. I think it's really sweet. But I also love the DMs from people who watch the show and then like ask really intense like questions about it. Like I love when people are like, when somebody messaged me and was like, they were like, the show was really great, but this moment was so stupid. And I just like thought it was the fun. Like people say like out of pocket stuff. Like I don't know. I feel like they just like forget that like they were like, you looked so stupid at this moment. And you're like, thank you. Or like fan art that like you really feel like doesn't look like you, especially like people like making my body, and you're like, please don't do that. Like you're giving me like a complex. Like people just message me like the funniest stuff, or just stuff that like I don't know. I think like the private section of the DMs is like a lot of people being like, love the show from Brazil. You look really dumb. And you're like, thank you so much. I love you too.
I'm kind of dying to see the fan art now.
Yeah, same.
I untag myself from it. No, not all of it. That sounds so mean. Not all of it. Not all of it. But sometimes I'm like, you guys, I hurt my feelings. Like, I don't look like that. You're giving me body dysmorphia right now.
Yeah, like do you respond to them and
God.
you're like, thanks for trying, but maybe try again?
No, I
This
don't
is
even
not
like. I try to like give like a thank you. If people like, I don't know. I respond to all the women in my DMs. The men, I'm like less likely to respond to, and like, it's also hard because you want to respond. I don't necessarily want to have like a full-fledged conversation, but also sometimes I'll go in there and there'll be someone who like I super respect. Like, Paper Girls have such a funny audience. Like, it was a lot like a younger audience. A lot of people in Brazil, I guess, were really into the show. And then like some like people who are real like comic book people, but like work in the industry. So there were also people who like some directors and like producers who like, I'm a huge fan of their stuff. I love indie film. That's kind of where I'd like to really work, both as a director and as an actor. And there were some like amazing people in like the indie film world who are just like dudes who love comic books, who are like in my DMs. And I was like, this is amazing. Like another artist who you like love and respect being into your work, you're like, it's like a freak out. You're like, oh my God, this is really exciting. So those are my funny DMs.
So getting into the DM of the week, the question is, what's one piece of advice you would give a beginner actor working on set? I know you already said one, which was just to observe, and you'll get the answers while observing. Do you have another piece of advice for them?
Befriend your hair and makeup girls. Befriend them.
Why?
They know a lot about what's going on. They're the person who's actually going to be like really like intimately the closest with you. They've got their hands in your hair and they're in your face. So sometimes like your director is off doing stuff, da 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 da. Like they're just a. I've always had like hair and makeup girls who like really had my back. I feel like on set, just like about what's going on, what's the temperature of the day. Like in befriend everybody, introduce yourself to everybody. Like don't stay up in their face, but like this last project that I was on, the older actress who I was working with, we had lunch before we started, which was amazing. And she was like, you know, when you're the lead of something, you're the captain of the ship as much as the director is. And so she was like, you kind of lead it. So I think it was like, you know, shake everybody's hand, you know, the guy who's doing crafty as much as like the producer, you know, like you want your EP to like, but you want the, like, you want to know the guy in crafty, you want to know who's doing your costumes. Like you want their assistants, you know, like the assistants, the people. I think we think about, another actress has said this. I want to say Issa Rae said this, but people think about networking as like, I'm trying to like get to this person, but like you kind of want to like get to this person. So it's like the other like assistants and the other people that are like really in the sticks with you. Those are the people you want to like befriend and be nice to and shake people's hands and ask them and, you know, just be a kind person. Like it goes a really long way because it gets really stressful on set. Like something goes wrong there. It costs a lot of money when things go wrong, but your hair and makeup girls, like they're the first person you're going to see in the morning. They're, depending on if you have a wig or whatever, they might be the last person you see every day. You'll have these intimate moments, you know, and then you'll move. And I think if you have a strong relationship with them, for me, like I like to have like that's just who I am. I like to have like a person who I feel like I can, and their focus is solely on you. The director is not really focused on you. Like she's got to deal with the producer, she's got to deal with the camera, she's got to deal with the light, she's got to deal with the image, she's got to deal with you don't have that, you know. So if you're someone who wants that, that can be your best friend. And I'm still like really close with all my like, hair and makeup girls. I like kind of adore them. So those are my big, know your lines, be prepared. Be prepared.
Awesome. And make friends with everyone.
And make friends with
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you so much. Honestly, this was so great. Thank you so much for coming on. Please, can you tell the listeners where they can find you on Instagram and if you have any, you know, links to a website?
Yeah, I am Sekai Abeni on Instagram, which I'm sure will be like tagged with this, so you can find it. You don't have to guess the spelling. And no website, but you can find me on Instagram and I'm posting. I'm there. I'm present.
Well, thank you so much, Sekai. It was such a dream talking to you, and we know that people will really get a lot out of this episode.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. Well, it's been another episode of Damsels in the DMs.
As always, please subscribe, rate, review on all of our podcast channels that you can find us, and keep sending us your DMs because we love reading them. And I think that's it.
And we're making our fall calendar, so if there's anybody who you think deserves to be on the podcast, then please let us know because we would love to have them on.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Well, it's been another episode of Damsels in the DMs.
Until next time.
It's going down in the DMs. Bye.
DMs, yeah, we see them, yeah, we read them. DMs, we don't need them, we just leave them.
Please.
Yeah.
It's going down in the DMs. Bye.